Mornings used to be simple. I'd wake up, drink my coffee, and go to work. No second thoughts, no suspicions, no need to check the details of my own life for cracks. Just the routine, the comfortable, familiar rhythm of a man who believed his world was solid beneath his feet. But that was before I noticed the cup. It was a regular Wednesday. No alarms blaring, no ominous warning signs. Just another day like 100 before it. The sunlight stretched through the blinds in long, golden stripes across the floor. I poured myself a cup of coffee, inhaling the rich bitterness as I stepped onto our small balcony, the cool morning air pushing against my skin. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, just watching the world wake up. The alley behind our apartment complex was quiet, save for the distant hum of cars heading to work, the occasional rustling of a breeze through the trees. I took a slow sip, letting my gaze wander, my mind still sluggish from sleep. And that's when I saw it. A coffee cup, sitting right there on my neighbor's balcony railing. A white ceramic mug, simple but familiar. Too familiar. My eyes narrowed as I focused on it, something in my brain resisting what I was seeing, yet unable to dismiss it. It was the same exact cup we had in our kitchen. Not just the same design, the same set, the same cheap white ceramic set that we'd had since our wedding. The set my wife always said she loved because it was simple and classic. The set that, as far as I knew, never left our kitchen. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was a coincidence. Plenty of people bought plain white mugs. It wasn't exactly a rare design. But as I kept staring, trying to convince myself of that, my stomach began to twist. There was a chip on the handle. Small, barely noticeable, but I recognized it immediately. I had chipped that cup months ago, knocking it against the edge of the sink while washing dishes. I remembered the sharp clang, the way I had cursed under my breath, already reaching to toss it in the trash. But my wife had stopped me, plucking it from my hands with a laugh. "It still works just fine," she'd said, rolling her eyes at my need to throw things away at the first sign of damage. That was our cup, and it was on his balcony. I felt my fingers tighten around my own coffee cup, my jaw clenching. The steam rising from the mug in front of me suggested it had been placed there recently. Someone had been drinking from it. Someone who had no business having it in the first place. Rick, my neighbor, wasn't outside. His balcony door was open, the curtains shifting slightly with the breeze, but he was nowhere in sight. That didn't mean anything. It didn't change the fact that something about this wasn't right. I could feel it like an itch beneath my skin. And then, like a floodgate opening, memories started rushing in. The little things I had ignored. The way my wife had started taking longer showers in the middle of the day, even when she wasn't working out or going anywhere. The way she always kept her phone face down on the table, silencing notifications with a casual tap of her finger. The way she had started humming to herself lately, a lightness in her step, as if some weight had been lifted. At the time, I had dismissed it as nothing. I had told myself I was just overthinking, that I was imagining things because work had been stressful, because I had been more tired than usual, because marriages go through phases. But this wasn't imagination. This was real. A coffee cup from our kitchen, sitting on his balcony. My breath felt heavier, my grip tightening until I thought I might crack the ceramic of my own cup. For the first time, I realized I didn't even want an explanation. I didn't want her to tell me some ridiculous excuse, to try and twist things into something innocent. Because I already knew. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need to catch them in the act. I had all the proof I needed, sitting right there, taunting me in the morning sunlight. I turned away from the balcony, stepping back inside the apartment, my mind already shifting from confusion to something much darker. Hatred. For her. For him. For myself. For not seeing it sooner. I wasn't a detective. I wasn't about to play games, or investigate, or give her the chance to lie to my face. I was going to do something about it. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee like it held all the answers. The warmth had long faded, the surface of the liquid now dull and motionless, but I hadn't moved. My fingers rested on the handle of the cup, not gripping it, not drinking from it, just touching it, like it was an anchor keeping me from floating away into the storm brewing in my head. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, at this time of morning, My wife would be bustling around, talking about nothing in particular, what she read online, a new series she wanted to start, how she wished the grocery store stocked that brand of almond milk she liked. But today, the silence felt thick, like the air had been sucked out of the room. I wasn't an idiot. I knew what that cup meant. I knew what it implied. But there was still a part of me, some pathetic, desperate part, that wanted to hear her say something, even if it was a lie. I got up and walked toward the sink, placing my untouched coffee down with a dull clink. My eyes flicked toward the cupboard where we kept the mugs. I reached up, pulling the cabinet door open, my stomach tightening as I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 cups. There should have been 5. I stared at the empty space where it should have been, my jaw clenching so hard my teeth ached. A sharp click at the front door made me turn. She walked in, looking exactly the same as she always did. Hair tied in a loose ponytail, wearing those yoga pants she loved, a water bottle in one hand, phone in the other. Normal. Too normal. Hey, she said, barely glancing at me as she kicked off her sneakers near the door. I just did a quick walk. It's already getting so hot out. I didn't answer. I just watched her move around the apartment, heading straight to the fridge. She didn't even notice the way I was standing there, silent and unmoving. Or maybe she did, but she was too damn confident to care. You eat yet? She asked, pulling out a bottle of iced coffee and twisting off the cap. I was thinking of making eggs or something. The rage inside me simmered, growing hotter by the second. I took a slow breath through my nose, pushing my hands into my pockets to keep them from shaking. How was your walk? I asked. My voice sounded normal. Too normal. She didn't even hesitate. Good. Just went down to the park and back. I nodded slowly, dragging my eyes over her. No sweat. No sign that she'd been outside in the heat at all. Liar. I glanced at her phone, still in her hand. She never put it down lately. Always within reach. Always flipped over when she wasn't using it. She leaned against the counter, taking a sip of her drink. What's up? I almost laughed at how casual she sounded. Like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't walking around in a house full of lies. For a second, I thought about confronting her right then and there. I thought about throwing open the balcony door, pointing across the alley, making her see the proof sitting right there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she sipped her drink so calmly, completely unaware that the walls were closing in around her. Or maybe it was something darker. I didn't just want an argument. I didn't want an excuse. I wanted to watch her squirm. So I said nothing. I just gave her a small, tight-lipped smile and turned back toward the table. She went on talking about nothing, something about needing to pick up groceries later, maybe stopping by that boutique she liked. I barely listened. My thoughts were somewhere else. With him, Rick, the friendly, always smiling neighbor who lived across from us. The guy who waved at me every time we passed in the hallway, who'd helped me jumpstart my car last winter. I'd never thought much about him before. He was just there, a part of the scenery. Now, I was seeing him differently. Now, every interaction played back in my head in perfect clarity. The way he lingered in conversations with my wife when we all ran into each other outside. The way he cracked jokes that made her laugh just a little too long. The way his eyes flicked toward her when he thought I wasn't looking. Had it been going on for weeks? Months? Had it started with innocent conversations, slow at first? A friendly chat in the hallway? An offer to help carry groceries? And then what? Did she invite him in while I was at work? Did they sit at my table, drinking coffee from my mugs? My stomach twisted. I needed answers. But more than that, I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I waited. I went through the rest of the morning like nothing was wrong. I kissed her goodbye when she left for yoga, told her I'd be working from home, just a normal day. She smiled at me, her eyes soft and easy, like she wasn't hiding something. But I knew better now. And this time, I wasn't going to ignore the signs. This time, I was going to catch her. After she left, the apartment felt different. The air was heavier, the walls seemed closer, and the silence wasn't peaceful. It was thick with tension, like the moment before storm breaks. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the door she had walked out of, my mind spinning in circles. She was gone, and I was alone with my thoughts. Thoughts that refused to settle. I glanced at my phone, checking time. 9:12 a.m. She had yoga at 9:30. At least, that's where she said she was going. I walked back to the balcony, stepping out into the sunlight, my eyes flicking toward the apartment across the alley. The coffee cup was still sitting there, untouched, as if mocking me. I scanned Rick's balcony, his windows, his door. The curtains were closed now, blocking any view inside. I stood there for a long time, gripping the railing, my heartbeat heavy in my ears. I knew what I should do. I should get in my car, drive to the yoga studio, see for myself if she was really there. But something about that felt wrong. Like I was the one who had to chase the truth, instead of making it come to me. No, I wasn't going to run around town like some fool, peeking through windows and playing detective. I was going to wait. Wait for the moment she slipped up. Wait for the moment she thought she was safe. Because when people think they've gotten away with something, that's when they get sloppy. So I waited. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, but not really seeing anything. My mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment of the last few months, trying to piece together all the signs I had missed. The sudden midday showers, the way she started dressing differently, more effort in her appearance, new clothes she never used to wear. At first, I thought it was for me. She had asked me if I liked a certain dress, if I noticed the perfume she was wearing. I had smiled, kissed her, told her she looked great. Had that been a test? Had she been checking to see if I still noticed her at all? Or had she just been hiding in plain sight? I exhaled through my nose, my fingers gripping the phone a little tighter. I had trusted her, and she had turned me into a fool. I glanced at the time again. 10:24 a.m. She wouldn't be home for at least another half hour. And that's when the idea struck me. The coffee cup. If that was her cup, my cup, then it should be here, in the kitchen, with the others. I walked over to the sink, pulling open the cabinet again, my stomach already tightening as I counted. 4. There were only 4. I let out a slow breath through my nose. So it was ours. I didn't know what I expected to feel, maybe some kind of relief that I wasn't imagining things. But all I felt was something deeper, something cold. I ran a hand through my hair, stepping back from the cabinet, my jaw clenched tight. Then I turned toward the bedroom. I never snooped, never felt the need to. That was what insecure husbands did. The ones who let jealousy eat them alive, turning them into paranoid, desperate men. But I wasn't paranoid. I was right. So I walked straight into the bedroom and opened her closet. Everything was exactly as it should be. Dresses hung neatly in a row, shoes lined up at the bottom, nothing out of place. But that didn't mean anything. I crouched down, reaching toward the back, my hands running over the space between the shoes, the little gap between the bottom of the closet and the floor. Nothing. I reached further back. My fingers brushed against something soft. I pulled it out. A small, folded towel. At first, I almost laughed. A towel? That was nothing. Just an old rag she must have thrown in there without thinking. But then I unfolded it, and my stomach dropped. Inside, neatly wrapped, was a man's t-shirt. Not mine. Rick's. I knew it was his because I had seen him wearing it before. Just last week when he was standing outside his door, chatting with another neighbor. I held it up, staring at it like it might explain itself, my fingers gripping the soft fabric, my pulse pounding in my ears. There was no reason for this shirt to be in my wife's closet. None. I turned it over, my breath catching in my throat. There was a faint, almost invisible stain on the collar. Lipstick. My wife's lipstick. I knew it because I had kissed that same shade off her lips 1,000 times before. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the fabric until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was proof. And suddenly, all the waiting, all the patience, all the calm I'd forced myself to hold on to, it shattered. She had been in my house, sleeping in my bed, and hiding his clothes in our closet. I dropped the shirt on the floor like it burned me. And then I laughed. It was a sharp, humorless sound that didn't belong in my throat. She thought she was so careful, thought she had me fooled. But she had made one mistake. She had forgotten what kind of man she married. Because if she thought I was just going to confront her like some sad, heartbroken husband, if she thought I was going to let her cry her way out of this, feed me some excuse, she was dead wrong. I was done waiting. Now, it was my turn to play the game. And she wasn't going to like my rules. I didn't move for a long time. I just stood there, staring at the shirt on the floor, My mind a storm of memories, questions, and something even darker, certainty. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't something I could explain away. My wife had brought his shirt into my home, hidden it in our closet, and thought I'd never find it. And I almost didn't. I let out a slow breath through my nose, forcing my hands to unclench. My fingers ached from how tightly I had been gripping the fabric. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. Not yet. Anger was hot. What I felt now was cold. Calculated. I wasn't just some betrayed husband, lashing out in blind rage. That's what she expected. That's why women like her thought they could get away with this kind of thing, because they knew men would react emotionally. Shouting, crying, begging. Not me. She had no idea that the moment I found that coffee cup, the game had changed. And I wasn't playing to lose. I picked up the shirt, folded it neatly, and placed it back inside the towel. Then I put it exactly where I'd found it, tucked away in the corner of the closet. She didn't need to know I had seen it. Not yet. Instead, I walked back into the kitchen, grabbed my coffee, now completely cold, and dumped it down the sink. I rinsed the mug, set it back in the cabinet, and checked my phone. 10:58 a.m. She'd be home soon. I took a slow breath, rolling my shoulders back. The worst thing I could do was act differently. If I showed even a hint that something was wrong, she'd get suspicious. She'd get careful, and I wanted her relaxed. I wanted her to think she was still in control. So I went about my day as if nothing had changed. I cleaned the kitchen, answered a few work emails, even sat on the couch and turned on the TV, flipping mindlessly through channels. I didn't even register what I was watching. My mind was elsewhere, playing out every scenario, planning my next move. Because now, it wasn't just about finding out if she was cheating. I already knew. Now, I needed to know how far it had gone. And then I was going to burn it all to the ground. 11:34 a.m. The front door opened. I didn't look up right away. I kept my eyes on the TV, pretending to be absorbed in whatever mindless show was playing. She walked in like nothing was wrong, setting her gym bag down by the door, stretching her arms above her head. God, that class was intense today, she sighed, rolling her shoulders. I think I might be sore for a week. I turned my head, giving her a lazy smile. Yeah, she groaned, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge and taking a long sip. I need to start going more often. My form is terrible. I nodded, watching her carefully. There was no guilt on her face, no hesitation. She was good at this. Too good. If I hadn't seen the cup, if I hadn't found the shirt, I would have believed every word. Did you eat? She asked, walking over and plopping onto the couch beside me. Not yet, I said, stretching my arms over my head, feigning relaxation. Figured I'd wait for you. She gave me a small smile, her eyes warm. That's sweet. I almost laughed. Sweet. That's what she thought I was. A sweet, loyal, clueless husband who had no idea what was happening right under his nose. I leaned over, kissing the top of her head. You smell good. She laughed, swatting my arm. It's sweat, babe. I grinned, shaking my head. Nah, it's that perfume you always wear. She smiled, her gaze softening. You always notice the little things. Yeah, and that was her mistake. The rest of the afternoon was normal. Too normal. We made lunch together, talked about our plans for the weekend, even joked around like we always did. I played along perfectly, because I wasn't just waiting anymore. I was watching. Every glance at her phone. Every time she checked the clock. Every time she disappeared into the bathroom a little too long, phone in hand. She thought she was being careful. But now I knew what to look for. And when she finally excused herself to take a quick nap, I didn't hesitate. As soon as the bedroom door shut, I moved. Fast. Her phone was in the kitchen, face down on the counter. For the first time in months, she had left it unattended. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed it, pressing the power button. The lock screen lit up. No notifications. Of course. She had turned them off. I exhaled, tilting my head slightly. Smart, but not smart enough. I set the phone back down exactly as it had been and walked to the bedroom door, pressing my ear against it. Silence. She wasn't asleep. She was waiting. I smirked. She had no idea that the real game had just begun. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. I walked away from the bedroom door, slow and deliberate, my mind already moving a few steps ahead. She was awake in there, I knew it. She wasn't the type to nap in the middle of the day, not unless she was exhausted. But she wasn't exhausted. She was waiting. For what? For me to leave? For a message she didn't want me to see? Maybe she thought she had time to clean up whatever mess she'd made before I got suspicious. Too bad for her. I was already there. I didn't go far. Just to the bathroom, where I shut the door but didn't lock it. Turned on the sink, let the water run just loud enough to be a distraction. And then I waited. Waited to see if she would take the bait. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. Then 2. And then, there it was. A soft creak of the bedroom door opening. I kept my breathing steady, my pulse calm, standing just out of sight of the mirror so she wouldn't see my reflection from the hallway. The sound of bare feet against the floor, moving toward the kitchen. She had taken the bait. I heard the faintest rustle, fabric against the counter. Then the sound of her phone being picked up. A pause. Then a soft click as the door shut again. I let out a slow breath, rolling my shoulders back, cracking my neck. So that's how she wanted to play it. Fine. I was better at this than she was. I waited another 5 minutes before shutting off the sink and stepping out like nothing had happened. When I passed the bedroom, I didn't pause, didn't hesitate, just kept walking to the living room, grabbing the remote like I had no idea she had just snuck out of bed to check her phone. I wasn't stupid. She had been waiting for something. A message. A call. Some kind of update from him. And now, she knew I had been in the kitchen near her phone. She was probably wondering, did I see something? Did I touch it? Did I know? Good. Let her wonder. Let her start doubting how safe she was. I leaned back on the couch, flipping through channels mindlessly. A minute later, the bedroom door opened again, this time slower, like she wasn't sure how to act. I didn't look up right away. Let her come to me. She stretched her arms over her head, letting out an exaggerated yawn. God, I didn't mean to sleep that long. I glanced at the time. 40 minutes. You needed it, I said smoothly, glancing at her with a lazy smile. Looked like that yoga class wore you out. She let out a soft laugh. Yeah, maybe I should start going more often. Oh, definitely, I said, nodding. It's obviously doing you good. She blinked like she wasn't sure if there was a hidden meaning in my words. I just smiled and turned back to the TV. Let her feel safe. Let her keep thinking she was one step ahead. She wasn't. The rest of the day passed with small talk, dinner, a movie on the couch. She curled up against me like nothing was wrong. Like we were just another happy couple spending a quiet night in. It was almost impressive, really, how well she played her role. But I wasn't fooled. Not anymore. Every time she checked her phone, every glance at the time, every quick trip to the bathroom to freshen up, I saw it all. And I let her do it. Let her get comfortable. Because comfortable people made mistakes. And I was waiting for the big one. Midnight. She was asleep. Or, at least, she was pretending to be. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, my mind a machine running through every possibility. I had the coffee cup. I had the shirt. I had the way she couldn't leave her phone alone for more than an hour. I could confront her now. But what would that do? She'd deny it. She'd cry. She'd turn around on me, act like I was crazy, paranoid. I needed more. I needed to end this. For good. I turned my head slightly, watching her as she lay beside me, her breathing soft, even, peaceful, like she didn't have a single damn thing to feel guilty about. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't sleeping tonight. Not until I knew exactly what she was hiding. 1:47 a.m. I moved carefully, silently, inching out of bed with the skill of a man who had been waiting for this moment all day. She didn't stir. I walked barefoot to the kitchen, taking my time, moving slow. Then, I picked up her phone. The lock screen was still clear. No notifications. But I knew better now. I pressed the side button, hesitating for only a second before setting the phone down and walking back toward the bedroom. This time, I didn't go back to bed. I just stood there in the doorway, watching, waiting for her next move. I stood there in the doorway, the faint glow of moonlight slipping through the blinds, casting long shadows over the room. The soft rise and fall of her breathing filled the space, steady, peaceful, a lie. She wasn't sleeping. Not really. Her breathing was too controlled, too even. A careful rhythm, not the deep, relaxed kind that came with true rest. I knew the difference. I had slept beside her for years. She was awake, And she was waiting. For what? For me to fall asleep first? For the moment she thought it was safe to grab her phone and check whatever messages she had hidden? I smirked to myself. Not tonight. I turned, walking back toward the kitchen, my movements slow, deliberate. No rush. Let her think I wasn't onto her. Let her believe I had no idea she was listening, waiting. I grabbed a glass from the cupboard, filled it with water from the sink, then took my time sipping it, leaning against the counter. Then, as casually as possible, I reached for her phone again. I didn't even try to unlock it. I just held it in my hand, running my thumb over the edge, pretending to examine it like I was lost in thought. I wanted to see if she would react. Because if she was awake, if she was pretending to sleep, then she'd be paying attention. And if she was paying attention, she'd know I was touching her phone. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Nothing. But then, a shift in the bed. Barely a sound, but enough. Enough to tell me she was aware. That she was listening. I smirked. She had no idea that she was making this easier for me. I set the phone down exactly where it had been, finishing my water before heading back to the bedroom. I moved like I was tired, stretching my arms, rolling my shoulders, letting out a quiet breath as if I was just a man settling in for the night. She didn't move, didn't react. I climbed into bed, turning onto my side, facing away from her. And then I waited to see if she'd take the bait. 2:22 a.m. I felt it. The slightest shift in the mattress. The careful, slow movement of someone who didn't want to be heard. My eyes stayed closed, my breathing steady. She was careful. I'd give her that. But I was better. I felt her roll over slowly, pausing to check if I reacted. I didn't. Another long pause. Then ever so slowly she moved. I heard the faintest rustle of fabric as she reached toward her nightstand, fingers brushing against her phone. The screen didn't light up. She was unlocking it by touch, muscle memory guiding her through the motions. My jaw clenched, but I didn't move. I just listened, waited. I want to know exactly how deep this went. A soft click. She was being too careful. Didn't want notifications popping up. Didn't want me to see anything. I almost laughed. She thought she had me fooled. But in reality, she was walking straight into my trap. She lay there in bed, scrolling, reading. I could feel it. The tension in her body, the way she was too still, too focused. Was she reading texts? Deleting them? Checking to see if he had messaged her while she had been pretending to nap? I wanted to rip the phone out of her hands. I wanted to see it. The proof. The messages. The lies. But that would ruin everything. If I confronted her now, she'd spin it. Turn it on me. Make me seem like the paranoid, controlling husband. No, I needed her to reveal herself. So I stayed still, silent, patient, letting her think she was getting away with it, letting her think she was still in control. 3:06 a.m. She finally put the phone down, took a slow, steady breath, then turned onto her side, facing away from me, like she had nothing to hide. I waited another 5 minutes before shifting slightly, letting out a quiet sigh, pretending to stir my sleep. Just enough for her to think I was moving naturally. I rolled onto my back, cracking my eyes open the smallest amount, enough to see the faint glow of the phone screen fading out. She was done for the night. She thought she was safe. She had no idea. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was him. Rick, the neighbor. The man who sat across the alley, drinking coffee from my cup, laughing at some inside joke with my wife, wearing a damn shirt she kept in our closet. My hands curled into fists beneath the covers. It wasn't just about catching her anymore. It wasn't about proof. I had that. This was about making her pay. Not just her, him too. Because if they thought they could do this to me, make a fool of me, sneak around right under my nose and get away with it, they were about to find out exactly who they had been underestimating. I let my breathing slow, pretending to sleep. Tomorrow, I was going to set things in motion, and by the time I was done, neither of them would ever see it coming. I woke up before she did. Not that I had gotten much sleep anyway. The sun was barely up, golden light filtering through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the bedroom. The world outside was starting to wake. Cars moving down the street, birds chirping, the faint sound of someone's morning radio humming through the walls. She was still asleep, or at least pretending to be. Her back was to me, one arm tucked under the pillow, her breathing deep and even. I watched her for a few seconds, taking in the little details I had once loved. The way her hair spread across the sheets, the slight curve of her shoulder, the way her lips parted just slightly as she slept. I used to think she was beautiful. Now all I saw was a liar. A woman who had spent months smiling in my face while sneaking around behind my back. I swallowed the slow burn of anger creeping on my throat and forced myself to stay calm. I had to play this right. I wasn't going to be the man who screamed, who threw things, who begged her to tell me the truth. That's what she expected. That's what he expected. Instead, I was going to make sure they never forgot what they did to me. I slid out of bed carefully, moving slow so I wouldn't wake her. I had a lot to do today. By the time she came out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes and stretching like nothing in the world was wrong, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee. Her eyes flicked to me, and for a brief second, I saw it. The tiniest bit of hesitation. She knew something was off. Good. She poured herself a cup, leaning against the counter. You're up early. Yeah, I said casually. Didn't sleep much. She tilted her head slightly, watching me. Everything okay? I nodded, taking another sip. Just thinking. She smiled, walking over to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. You overthink too much. I bet that's what you're hoping. She kissed my cheek, soft, warm, practiced. Then she sat across from me, scrolling through her phone like it was just another morning. I watched her carefully. Would she text him now? Or was she smarter than that? Would she wait, sneak away for a phone call? I let my gaze drift to her hand, to the way she rested her phone against her leg, slightly tilted, like she didn't want me to see the screen. Yeah, she was hiding something, and she had no idea that I was about to take it all away from her. I left the apartment at noon, just like I always did on Fridays. She was used to me running errands, stopping by the office, maybe grabbing a beer with a coworker. It gave her time. Time to do whatever the hell she'd been doing behind my back. Except today, I wasn't going anywhere near the office. Today, I was going to get answers. And I knew exactly where to start. Rick's apartment was 2 floors below ours. I had never stepped inside, never needed to. We were friendly, but not friends. He was just the guy who lived across the alley, who nodded when we passed each other in the hall, who made small talk about the weather when we ended up in the elevator together. And apparently, the guy who thought he could sleep with my wife. I knocked on his door, firm but not aggressive. A few seconds passed before I heard movement inside. Then the door cracked open. Rick's face appeared, eyebrows raised slightly in surprise. Hey man, what's up? I smiled. Easy, relaxed, like I wasn't thinking about breaking his nose. Hey Rick, sorry to bother you. Just had a quick favor to ask. His posture eased. Yeah, sure. What's up? I glanced past him, into his apartment. Neat. Tidy. No sign of her. Not that I expected her to be here. She wouldn't be that reckless. Still, I wanted to see. Mind if I come in for a sec? I asked, keeping my tone light. Just easier to explain. He hesitated. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes. A flicker of something, doubt, unease, the tiniest bit of fear. Good. I smiled wider, waiting. Finally, he stepped back, opening the door fully. Yeah, of course. Come on in. I stepped inside, glancing around, taking everything in. Clean kitchen. Living room with a big leather couch. Framed pictures on the wall. His family, a couple of vacation shots. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then, my eyes flicked to the coffee table. And there it was. The cup. Still there. Still sitting on his damn balcony railing. As if he hadn't even thought to get rid of it. I turned back to him, still smiling. Nice place. Thanks, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. So, what's up? I let a bead of silence pass. Then I motioned toward the balcony. You mind if I step out? Just need to check something real quick. He blinked. Yeah, I guess. He followed me as I walked over, sliding the door open. The air was warm, the alley quiet. I reached out, picking up the coffee cup, turned it over in my hands. Felt the small chip near the handle, the one I had recognized the second I saw it. The air behind me shifted. Rick was too still. I exhaled slowly, setting the cup down, then turned back to him, finally letting my smile fade. His jaw was tight now, his arms crossed. Something wrong. I tilted my head. Where'd you get that cup, Rick? His eyes flicked to it. This cup, I said, picking it back up, holding it out toward him. Where'd you get it? He swallowed, his throat bobbing slightly. I don't know, man. It's just a cup. Liar. I nodded slowly, setting it back down. Then I turned, meeting his gaze dead on. Rick, I said, voice calm, steady. Are you sleeping with my wife? His whole body went stiff. His face paled just slightly, his fingers curling into his palms. What? He let out a dry, forced laugh. Dude, what the hell are you talking about? I kept my eyes on him, didn't blink, didn't move, just let the question hang there. The way he reacted told me everything I needed to know. The slight dart of his eyes toward the door, the way his shoulders tensed, the way his breathing changed just enough for me to notice. He was lying. He was terrified. And now I knew for certain. I let out a slow breath, nodding once. All right, I said. Just wanted to check. And then, before he could say another word, I turned and walked out. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. Now, it was time to make sure neither of them ever forgot what they had done.